This is episode 33 of Hardly Qualified, Human Pest Control, for September 6th, 2013. Have you ever sat around in a pub and chatted into the wee hours of the night? Ever considered the world in ways you've never before thought about, and then shared it with your friends? Welcome to Hardly Qualified, a weekly podcast recorded in Calgary, Alberta, where Will Connor and his friend Ducky get together to wax philosophical about whatever suits their fancy. With the occasional guest, they discuss society and culture, following random threads of thought wherever they may lead. So pull up a chair, grab a drink, and join the conversation, because you never know, you might be hardly qualified too. Let's get started.
It's us. We're back with my really long-time friend Tesh. Hey Tesh, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, I'm good. It's been like forever since I've talked to you.
I know, I missed you.
You said we're back.
I did?
Yes.
Do we have to change that?
Oh my god, no, I'll just beat you up later.
I'll
drop a dresser on you on the weekend.
I did say, oh, you probably will too.
Yeah.
Make me drive the big truck.
No, you can drive the little truck with all my computer stuff in it, and I'll drive the big truck.
Oh, there's two trucks?
Well, no, because we'll need your car.
This is turning out to be less fun than I anticipated when you said help me move. I was expecting, like, booze and party lights and people.
And strippers.
Yeah, sure, strippers. Now, apparently I'm going to be babysitting cats, so... You know.
Well, you don't have to. You need permission from the husband first, too, so...
Yeah, I'll ask Tommy. He'll say yes, and then I'll tell you he said no.
What?
That's how these things are.
Why would you do that to me, man?
Now, no matter what I say, you won't actually know what the real response was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as you take my cats for a couple of weeks, I'm happy.
It's not often people ask you that, but we'll see what we can do for you.
Yeah.
But that's a great thing about cats, that they can take care of themselves.
Well, yeah, it's
leave
just,
them alone.
I'm moving, and the people who are taking over the house I'm currently in want to keep the cats, and that's kind of my only option right now, because I'm homeless without them, or with them, and there's really no other place I can... I really don't want to take them down to, like, a shelter and say, here, have a couple of cats, right?
Free cats for everybody.
Free cats, yeah.
They'll be like, we never get those here.
Yeah, I know, it's 3 cats, alright! It's my day. Like, the landlady's daughter is the one who's taking over the house. I don't know if I've talked about me moving yet, but we've been here since...
Landlady's daughter? That sounds like some sort of country western.
Yeah. Well, we've been here, I've been here since, 2006 or something, and arguably have been the best lieutenant that this landlady has ever had. She's been renting this house out for 20 years, and she's had, problem after problem after problem until we moved in, and, the house is clean, it's kept in good repair, it's, rent's always been paid on time, she's never had any problems with us and us with her. But, her daughter is getting married, I understand, and, she will be giving the house to her daughter as a... Congratulations, have a place to live.
That's pretty nice of her.
It sure is, yeah. So, her daughter's been coming over every couple of days for the last month or so. She's been looking around the house and taking measurements and making plans, and she saw the kitties, and she was like, oh, delightful little kitties. If you don't want to take them, we will take them.
Wow.
Yeah, so... And I mean...
Sounds like she's rife with personality.
Yeah. But the cats, they've been here for the vast majority of their lives, so to them, this is their home, and people have come and gone, and as long as they're well cared for, I don't think they'll be too bothered by my absence, but...
I'm pretty convinced that that's actually the worldview that cats have. Like, when we go away on vacation, we would have our friends come by and feed them and do the litter box. And they were gone for a week or two, and then we'd come home, and they'd look at us like, oh, we thought you were dead, and they just sent replacements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's you again.
Yeah. It's like, oh, great, okay, you're back. So, I'm pretty sure they're convinced that if anything happens to their human, the world will just send them another one.
Yeah. Free humans for everybody.
Exactly.
Product replacement system, right?
Yeah.
So.
Lifetime guarantee.
But, I don't know, I think I'm gonna miss them, but, I mean, they were kind of foisted on me by a previous roommate who just bailed and left them behind, so...
Now you're doing the same.
Well, it's hard to say that I didn't really... it's easy to say that I never wanted them in the first place, but that doesn't change the fact that I've grown accustomed to having them around. And then me, I think. So...
Well, at least you'll be able to say they're in a better place now.
Well, no, they're in the same place.
Oh.
Right? Well, I mean, there will be renovations.
They're
renovating the place. They're pulling all the carpet out and replacing some of the wiring, and which this place really needs it. I mean, somebody decided to string a bunch of lights and then feed it with stereo wire, so... Yeah, so...
How did that place not burn down?
I don't know. Well, she said she had a couple of electrical fires before we moved in, so... But as soon as I recognized that, I have some training in electrician's work, so as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, so we're going to disconnect this whole light system. So... And I mean...
Yeah, you don't want to be doing that.
Yeah. Stereo wire does not have the capability to run 120 volts through it.
It's like that song, Dumb Ways to Die, right?
Yeah.
Doing your own electrical work.
Well, I mean, you can do your own electrical work if you know what you're doing, but it seems that whoever wired this place... Because it looks like the basement was done secondary, like after the fact, and whoever wired the basement was like looking it up on the internet. If that. You're getting advice from somebody who hadn't done it in 20 years, so...
Right.
10 ways to do a stereo wire, right?
So, just didn't... Because stereo wire is low voltage wire, right? So...
Yeah, I think 5 volt or no, maybe a little bit more than that, but still, you don't want to be. You need like a good 12 gauge shotgun. I don't know. I'm making shit up. I really don't know.
Don't know anything about electrician stuff.
Well, I know how to replace light switches, but not 4-way light switches. Last time I did that, I replaced a 4-way with a 3-way because I didn't know there was such thing as a 4-way, and I turned it on and it set part of my wall on fire.
Yeah.
So I called my buddy who's an electrician, and I'm like, "Can you fix this?" And he's like, "Yeah, but I have to dig a hole in your wall now."
Yeah. The 4-way switches are a little complicated. 3-ways are pretty easy, but it's the 4-way ones that are a little more complicated.
Yeah, that took a while to get working again, especially with the melted wiring. So, you know.
This week on Highly Qualified, we're talking about home renovations.
How to set your bathroom on fire.
Yeah. So
I put in like motion sensing switch and timers and stuff into the bathrooms. That I can do.
That's pretty spiffy.
Yeah. It's one of the things I need to do is get it. We used in the old house, we used to have a timer on the fan in the bathroom, so you just push it and 20 minutes later it turns itself off. But now instead you turn it on and it stays on until somebody turns it off, so.
Or till it burns the house down.
Yeah. And it's one of those old fans that has like warped bearings in it, so it'll run smooth, and then like 5 minutes in, it'll like one of the bearings will catch and it'll go and it'll grind for like 10 minutes, and then the bearing will pop free again, and it'll be nice and smooth. So if you're not paying attention, it'll wake you up in the middle of the night if somebody's took a shit in the afternoon or in the evening and left the fan on.
Oh well, thanks for that wonderful color commentary, my friend. People eat to this podcast, I imagine. I really have no clue, but
people probably also take shits to this podcast too.
Well, we're just elevating our audience.
Just being real, man. Just be real. I mean, just being real, man. So
people who take their smartphones, smartphones everywhere.
Do you want to say that again so we can edit it in and make you sound all eloquent?
Nah, it's fine.
All right.
People know that I'm not actually smart. I just pretend to be.
All right.
Let's play one on radio.
Yay! So how's your week been anyway?
Mine?
Yeah, I haven't talked to you.
Freaking depressing. I don't want to talk about it.
Okay, fine. Hi, Tesh. How was your week?
It's far too depressing too.
Fuck, you guys suck. Fine.
No, it was actually pretty great, but
Yeah, that's where you're gonna be. We'll just go right into the show. What are we talking about today, Will?
We're talking about the end of civilization.
In general or specific?
Well, because you had mentioned previously the Roman civilization and your disdain for it. So.
No, not disdain for it, but disdain
See
for
how I bait him like that? It works really well.
Is that
what?
What?
Continue.
No, so the Roman Empire was great when it started, but because it was the ultimate pinnacle of civilization for like 300, 400 years, it devolved into decadence and it was based on an economy of slavery, which is unsustainable, and yeah, so that's, a lot of...
How is an economy of slavery unsustainable?
Because slaves have costs, but they don't produce anything.
Then those are really shitty slaves.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I know we have the meme of the Great Pyramids, slavery gets shit done, but no, it's one of the, they're not,
Don't they go out into, like, the cotton fields and...
Well...
Are you talking more like servant slaves?
Yeah, because that's what happened, like, the way the empire generated its wealth was through conquest, right?
Right.
It was never an economic power, it was a conquest power. It went out, it conquered a nation, it stole all the nation's gold and brought it back to Rome, and that's how the wealth of Rome was built. But once it had conquered everything, there was very little in the ways of being able to sustain that sort of, the cost of being, the cost of the civilization or whatever, the empire. And when, 60 or 70% of your population are slaves who are, they're not producing slaves, they're not like farmers or serfs or,
They're lazy slaves.
Well, no, but I mean, they're like, they're sex slaves or they're, servants in a household or, that kind of thing, where you have so many bodies that you have to take care of, but not enough work for them to do. And that's where the Roman Empire's economy started collapsing, is because then they didn't have an economy that was built off of, resource production. It was based off of, that kind of, I don't know.
I agree with that too.
But I mean, that's like in the later years, there was all that sort of, tax the provinces more, tax the provinces more, tax the provinces more, and that they saw the provinces as the source of income rather than, having their own inherent economy built in. Right?
Well, I think a large part of their downfall came with them, like, salting the lands of anyone they conquered. They were pretty spiteful.
That's also pretty hyperbolic. I mean, there's really only one place that they actually salted, and even that, the stories that I've heard have been apocryphal about it, and that was, Carthage, right? So... And a lot of that is hyperbole or apocryphal propaganda from what I've read about it. That, I mean, if you actually did that, then, you would think that half the Mediterranean would be uninhabitable right now. So.
I actually agree with this. I mean, I was thinking about it, and you have slaves to feed you, and then you have to feed the slaves eventually. Or you don't, I mean, you have so many slaves that you just stop feeding them eventually, and that's no good. Today I was talking about Egypt, actually, and I was looking at, like, just how far down it came. I mean, it was at a peak at the time, too. It had those pyramids, like you're saying, with the slaves being built and everything. It had the pharaohs, and now they're just completely... I mean, look at it now. It's upheaval all the time. There's revolutions about it. Just so much instability over it, and the economy isn't great either. Well, and I just thought that was funny.
Yeah, I think it's hard to sort of take, like, the old kingdom of Egypt and compare that to, like, modern-day, Hosni Mubarak or Mohammed Morsi, Egypt,
yeah, of course,
right? I mean, like, it's hardly the same nation, right? I mean, it's the same landmass with the same name and the descendants of the same people, but, nearly absolutely everything else about it. Its geopolitical position is widely different. Its, society is wildly different. And I think a lot of the problems that we're seeing in Egypt and in Syria and in Libya and a lot of this Arab Spring stuff is a problem with the like. We're talking about the ends of civilization, so I don't want to sidetrack this too much into an argument against religion, but Islam is not only a religion, but it's also a political system, right? And we can see how well theocracies work, right? Because we have revolutions everywhere. And in the 21st century, a theocracy just has no credibility, and that's why you're seeing, the Arab Spring rise up, because a lot of these people have the sort of divine right to rule, and they're following the Book of Islam, the Quran, to represent the method of political control, and it's unsustainable. It's great when you're an ignorant sheepherder who doesn't know how iron is turned into steel, but I don't know, in a day of the the widely informed masses, it's hard to maintain. So
yeah. Well, no, it's, the whole point of me bringing up Egypt was that I wasn't talking about, like, in comparison to the olden times. I mean, that's completely unfair, but in terms of the end of a civilization, I was just comparing, like, even the particular landmass itself to the current structure, about how it just fades with time, like how every civilization comes to an end. Because, honestly, humanity is born with an expiration date, and nothing does last forever. It's because I think sometimes generations just get lazier, and then they have to learn to adapt and become stronger again. And my main point is that I'm even thinking about Britain in, like, 200 years ago, and compared to now, it just became so significantly weaker, and America's in a similar turn, like the US and stuff. But then you look at just the span of it, and in, like, 2,000 years from now, like, unless we blow ourselves off, it could be just like a radically different setting. It's because people change through time, and it just devolves.
Like, have you ever wondered why there was an Italian Renaissance? What was it about Europe that basically drove the sort of scientific recreation of like in the 60s?
Reliable agriculture.
Yeah. Well, no, it wasn't just that. It was the fact that you had, like, in the East, right? You had China. Big monolith country. Everything was internalized. China was China, and China had very few enemies, right? But Europe was like, 15, 16, 17 different little city-states all fighting with each other, and that conflict is what spurred on a lot of the scientific progress of the early Renaissance. And that's kind of, like, that's how Rome got started, that's how Carthage got started, that's how, the Hittites got started. The way that these vast, great, civilizations that we look back on, that's how they get started. They're a little guy who is struggling against the world and succeeds. And gets better and better and better, and keeps defeating the threats that present themselves to him or her. I'm using him as an analogy. But what ends up happening is that every time you defeat a challenge, every time you overcome an obstacle, you get stronger and you get better. But when you run out of obstacles, when you run out of things that can challenge you, then you atrophy. Right? And that's what happens with civilizations. You have England, who goes to war with France all the time, and goes to war with Scotland all the time, and goes to war with Ireland all the time, and then wins, and takes over Scotland and Ireland and half of France. Right? And then,
although France doesn't admit it.
Yeah, although France doesn't, that didn't happen, no. And although, if you want to be truthful about it, it was the French who invaded England first, and then 400 years later, the French were coming home, so, I mean, William the Conqueror, anyone? But, I mean, that's the way civilization runs, is, whenever you are the little guy, you fight tooth and nail and innovate and get stronger and get better, and you rise up and take over the people who threaten you. And then once you're the top of the pile, then you have no reason to be better, to get stronger, because you're already the biggest and baddest dog on the street.
That's such a good metaphor for just life and ambition in general, and even the people, right? I mean, you see all these CEOs or something, and companies that climb to the corporate top and they get sloppier. I mean, look at Microsoft. I hate using it as an example, but it's been pretty sloppy the last year. But
or even Apple.
Yeah, even Apple. Yeah, I totally agree with that as well. Like, I mean, I'm an Apple fanboy, and I'd still, like, bash Apple down for some of the stuff it does wrong. But the other thing about civilizations that I thought was great was your initial point about sustainability, right? I mean, you gather and you gather and you gather, and you want more till you realize that you have no idea how to spend it, and then you just keep spending it lavishly because you have so much, but then suddenly it just runs dry because you've been spending so much, and you stop taking as much because you forget that you don't have as much as you thought you did, and then boom,
you become accustomed to the lifestyle.
Exactly, and then you can't sustain it anymore because you thought you could, but then...
It's like a couple weeks ago, Will and I were talking about lifestyle inflation, and that's something that can be applied even on the grand scale of countries and nations. That societies have lifestyles inflation, and we become accustomed to, the higher quality of life and the higher living standard. And there are people in the world who are completely content to live in absolute squalor, as we would see it, right? They don't have electricity, they don't have, video games, they don't have vehicles and cars, right? And they're perfectly content, and they're perfectly self-sufficient, and they're having, very effective, valuable lives. But we wouldn't even be able to consider that because, like, we have an expression that I cannot live without my cell phone. I cannot live without cable TV.
What?
No, I can't live without Facebook, and that is pretty ridiculous,
this
right?
is stuff that we have grown accustomed to, and we are incapable of even fathoming what it would be like without it. Because it's part of who we are as a society.
I can barely conceive of a life without smartphones.
Right?
And it wasn't all that long ago. It was like 5 years ago.
Well, just 5 years ago.
I don't even have a smartphone, so I haven't gotten tied into that train. But I remember a day when you used to have to, if you wanted to talk to somebody, you had to go to somebody's house and pick up a phone and hope they were at their house. If they were out of the house, that you were fucked. You couldn't, nowadays, people don't even have home phones. It's unfathomable for a person not to have a cell phone. Right?
You know, I also realize that a lot of people don't even call anymore, they just text. It's like, hey, are you there? I mean, it's kind of like almost becoming unorthodox to call somebody. Because the other day I got a call from a friend, I'm like, wait, you're calling me? Because like, I'm in the middle of something, you should have texted me.
Well,
You
I only
know,
call people if my text conversations are breaking down.
Well, it's not only that, but I mean, like, when was the last time you ever left somebody a voicemail? When was the last time you checked your voicemail?
I check mine all the time. It's generally for some company that's trying to sell me something.
Well, yeah, but I mean, most of the time when you're trying to get a hold of somebody, you want to leave a message for someone, you send them a text, right?
Actually, all the voice messages on our home phone are a fax machine that's been trying to send us a fax for like the last 6 months. It calls twice a day, and we're like, okay, we don't have a fax machine.
That's funny.
Very intelligent system.
Yay! So
here's a question though: do we like? Is it worth even bemoaning the death of great empires?
No.
Like, who cares?
No.
That's just
No.
It's
just like evolution,
It's
yeah.
a good thing that
Yep.
the big guys fall. It's a good thing because it makes room for the little guys to rise up.
It makes room for innovation,
yeah,
too.
it's the failure of one it makes room for the successes of another, right? And everybody gets their day in the sun.
Could you imagine if Roman Empire lasted forever? I
Yeah.
mean, we'd still be stuck with, like, gladiator battles.
Yeah.
But then we have the Kardashians right now, so I don't know.
But could you imagine the Kardashians in a gladiator battle?
Please.
Dude,
only if J.J. Abrams is producing it.
let's flare.
Lights flare!
Yeah.
Just, like, flash bright lights onto the audience. Yeah, that's,
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Miley Cyrus narrating.
oh god, don't even get me started with Miley fucking Cyrus.
You know, that actually reminds me of the other part about civilization, is that people are sheep, like you were mentioning about the point, because I was telling Nick the other day, or today actually, about, like, the whole Affleck thing, which happened, like, 2 days ago,
know.
literally 2 days ago.
What's the
Everyone
Affleck?
on the internet,
Yeah.
Affleck being cast as Batman, everyone on Twitter was on it, it was just, like, blowing up the news streams and everything, right? Suddenly, the VMAs happened, and boom, Miley Cyrus, and the Affleck talk just stops dead cold, because everyone jumps on to talking about just Miley Cyrus and the VMAs, and I just thought, that's one of the other things, it's just people are just so
Yeah.
easily distracted.
Bread and circuses, right?
Yep.
You got the
I read
bread.
an article that said that Miley Cyrus killed twerking. And then the next
Actually-
response was, what the frick is twerking?
The funniest part is today I was watching a news thing, and twerking is officially put into the Oxford Dictionary
Are you
as a
kidding me?
word.
Ugh.
So I just picture like a kid 10 years from now or 20 years from now when twerking is not a common popular thing anymore, and it's like trying to substitute a word to like whatever his essay is, and he's like, oh, twerking, that sounds like a better alternative to shake. You know?
Like how people misuse epic?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or awesome.
Yeah.
Just go twerk that can a little bit, and then you can mix it in with your food.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
I don't know. I'm really excited for this episode, though. I don't really want to talk about the falls of civilization so much as
Alright.
the post-apocalyptic.
The post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
Huh? Do you
Oh,
believe
man,
that's
my
going to be like happening in your lifetime?
My favorite genre of fiction is post-apocalyptic or dystopian. I don't know why it's one or the other. A lot of the times.
explain the difference to those of us who pretend we don't know the difference.
Okay, post-apocalyptic usually refers to after some huge catastrophe has destroyed the vast majority of human life on Earth. And you see it in a lot of zombie movies, you see it in a lot of nuclear holocaust movies, you see it in a lot of games like Fallout and Fallen Earth, Mad Max, you see it in a lot of those sort of games and movies where the entirety of society and civilization has fallen. Book of Eli is a good one.
Yeah.
Right, those are post-apocalyptic settings, and it's usually, one of three things. It's usually a zombie apocalypse, like some kind of virus, it's a nuclear holocaust, or some kind of environmental disaster. But whatever the cause is, the genre is about, a small group of survivors banding together in order to survive the wasteland.
Yeah, it all comes back to creating civilizations again.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
The way I would differentiate between dystopian and post-apocalyptic is the civilization. There is no concrete structure in post-apocalyptic, but in a dystopian there is a governmental structure or an established structure that regulates society.
Yeah. Dystopia is the opposite of utopia.
Yep.
Dystopia is, you'll see that in things like cyberpunk. A lot of cyberpunk is set in dystopias. Total Recall, the new one with Colin Farrell, is a dystopia.
In 1984.
1984. It's the idea that it's a strongly regimented society where there is very, very little hope for personal advancement and happiness. It's a very bleak sort of setting that's really teaches people how to appreciate
So
what
like
they
the
have.
modern USA then.
Well, not really, because the modern USA. It's hard to the modern USA is neither a dystopia nor a utopia, right? I mean, I don't know. It's
It's just a
Actually,
utopia.
I'd argue against that, because have you guys ever read Brave New World?
Yes.
Yeah, so
All
essentially in that,
country.
yeah, the society gets like stabbed with these chemicals or the soma or whatever, right? And they're just completely drugged, but they delude themselves into thinking happy because they're completely fueled on this. And in 1984, they're regulated by a full-on supervision. But today's society, if you look at it, go to London. Every corner has a camera just watching your crime and stuff. And in the US, people are just so force-fed. I mean, even to think about the sheep and the Twitter thing, right? It's just, a lot of people delude themselves that technology or like Facebook or just doing these kinds of regular activities makes them happy. And it's like, we don't even know the great schemes of things. I just feel like we're kind of in a mixture of a 1984 and a Brave New World, but not to the extremes that those books were in, but we're kind of like in that middle point. I don't know if you guys agree with me or not about that.
I totally understand what you're saying. I actually saw I think it was like an infographic and I'm pretty sure it was an infographic. It was kind of a side-by-side of Orwell's 84 and Huxley's Brave New World, and kind of taking a lot of the key points. And we'll put it up in the show notes, and it's totally worth checking out. and I'll actually do the research this time, so Willie won't be mad at me. But I had a point. It happened again. Okay. No, it's still not here. So anyway, it was a brilliant comparison that I thought between the two of them, and it made the point that we're really more in a Brave New World landscape than we thought, just because of our technological obsessions, our filter bubbles, the collapse of curated news, and editorial arbiters, right? So I'm reading. I think I mentioned this before, but in a previous episode, I'm reading the filter bubble, and one of the things that they're talking about at the point that I'm right now, I think like 30% into the book, is how sites like Gawker and Dig and Reddit and Google News and whatnot are really feeding us what it thinks we want us to hear, or what we want to hear. So they realize that sex and scandal is very popular, and that we tend to like sex and scandal against our particular political ideology. So that's what we're seeing more and more of in our news, even though it's not actually representative of what's going on across society as a whole, right? So it heightens our perception that this is more prevalent than it actually is. And that really informs and distorts our opinions. And that's because the computers have removed the arbiters, the editors from the process.
I think it's also because of, I think this comes down to like a really human psychological issue, is that I kind of feel like we kind of want a purpose. I mean, if I'm looking back at history, I'm just thinking about it, and there's a lot of instances where people had something to fight for, and in reality right now, we don't really have much to fight for. So I feel like we do. I mean, I don't mean it in complete generality.
Right? I mean,
yeah,
it's not
exactly.
like we had Nazis,
Yeah, so
No. And the reason why you're wrong on that is because I said so. But short of that reason, and I'm sorry for like trampling all over your comments there, Tesh, but I think that we're in a society that makes it really complacent, or that makes us really complacent. We're not asked to sacrifice for external causes anymore.
Yeah,
and we don't ask that of ourselves. I've heard people like bemoan that, oh well, the Iraq War and the Afghani War and whatnot, we didn't. We weren't doing war bonds, we didn't change our productions and whatnot. And it's not because the government didn't ask it of us, it's we didn't ask it of us, because our society almost has this destructive autopilot where we can just let it go and stand off to the side. But that doesn't mean that these issues are, not out there, that there aren't things to rail against. I mean, look at Syria right now and the chemical weapons that they're using over there. The NATO countries are stepping in a lot quicker than they have in the past to deal with this type of genocide and targeting on one's citizens with prohibited weapons. But really, the impact to me and you is that it's interrupting our news cycle about twerking.
No, I mean, I'm totally going to agree with that, but I guess I just misworded my point, is that I had to like strongly establish at first, but I meant to say that in terms of like sitting where we are right now and the countries we live in, it's, especially North America, we're in a very comfortable position where we're not directly impacted by anything. There's nothing breaking down through our windows right now or coming in. So anytime, the most direct connection like a lot of us have is Facebook or something. So let's just hear me out on this. So whenever someone gets like a direct newsfeed and a lot of sharing about a particular issue, they feel like, hey, now this is something I can finally talk about. Hey, this is something I can make my opinions about and stand my opinion for, because that gives me the right to do it. It makes me feel like I'm doing something with my life. So either if it's like a news article about Syria, Iraq, and any of it, people feel like they finally have a chance to stand up for a particular thing, and that's why they hop on from one news issue to the other. And this brings me back to the recent thing about the Boston bombings or something. That hit pretty close to where people were, and it just blew up. But look at the real statistical analysis of it. Boston killed 2 people. And that very day, Iraq, 50 or 40 people died, and like children. Around the world, there was so much devastation, but people felt like, hey, I'm totally against that Boston bombing thing, and riled up for that. That's pretty much the point I was trying to make, is that people are so like away from the real danger of it, that the only issues they could latch onto is like the ones that come to them through their news feeds or whatever in their direct life.
We consent to levels of risk, though. We consent to, or just by mere acts of engaging in them, that if we get on a bus, that the bus could roll over or fall off a cliff or catch on fire or whatever, but we don't consent to having it blown up on us, because that's not a part of our society, so that doesn't inform our decision-making process. We don't say, well, you know what, maybe I won't go see Batman because I don't want to take the bus and risk getting blown up today, right?
Or maybe I won't go see Batman because my theater might get shot up.
Well, right.
Well, I was thinking let's not go see Batman because Ben Affleck has been cast.
Exactly. I mean, that's definitely more horrible than somebody shooting you up. Sorry. Whew, I said the bad word. Okay. Yeah, there we go. It left again.
But yeah, I can see where Tess is coming from, that we do have that sort of isolated from reality bubble where it's not a constant struggle for survival anymore, that we have basically, we set ourselves into a situation where we can survive rather comfortably on autopilot. And because of that, there's this sort of, ADD when it comes to, issues and ideologies. And you always hear that there's a lot of these sort of advocacy groups who keep saying things like, there's still work to be done, still work to be done, still work to be done. And it's almost to the point where, it's really hard to sort of justify that, because we live in such a just and comfortable and generous society that it's hard to, when you look around at other parts of the world, or even our history, how we used to be, it's really hard to sit back and, be honest with yourself and say, there's still work to be done. Because we've come a hell of a lot of the way, and, I think that's why we're on our downswing now, because there's...
Yeah, and I agree with Will about the point about that stuff, too, is that it's still not going to change the fact that we still have so much to fight for in reality, If we can pick what to fight for or defend, there's gay rights, there's all of that stuff, there's stuff that's happening in Syria. I mean, I don't think is military action required to go over there and stuff like that. Those are current topics that you could choose to fight for, but that's the point. We have choice now. Like, we get to choose what to fight for. I mean, if we're enslaved in, enforced battle in a gladiator coliseums, we're not going to have a choice to be like, oh, screw the fact that I'm going to be thrown to lions. I'm going to talk about gay rights, right? So it's those kinds of options that we have now that changes that kind of dire need to defend something, and that's what I meant by we have no immediate need to fight for anything unless what we choose to fight for.
So we have a buffet to pick our battles from.
Exactly.
Yeah, because there's no pressing need anymore.
Yeah.
Right? You ever seen the movie Sharkwater?
No.
No.
No, it's actually a pretty good movie. It talks a lot about the decline of sharks in the ocean and whatnot. It's made by a Canadian documentarian. Anyway, it was pretty good. One of the things I found really interesting at the end of the movie, they put up statistics for shark kills in a given year versus deaths by sharks in any given year versus deaths by soda machines in any given year.
Yeah.
And you're much more likely to be assaulted or murdered by your Coke machine than you are by a shark. Yet we don't have Soda Machine Week on the Discovery Channel.
I think it's funny, too. It's because most of the times we're instigating the soda machines by shaking them down. Because people run up against them, it's like, give me free stuff, and it falls on them and kills them. And the same thing applies to nature, too. You kind of instigate going to their territory, right? That's another part of human civilization. That totally goes back to civilization and invading other people, too.
Well, see, you get these people in the city that are so surprised that there's coyotes or bears wandering around in the edges, and they're like, they complain to the government, like, why do you let them be here? And they're like, well, we got this kind of weird view, especially in the cities, of how our lives are, that it's so controlled and constructed and regimented and regulated that, when nature wanders into our little imaginary boundaries, we're like, hey, wait a second, you're not allowed to be here. You're other. Like, people go out to the country. They don't realize that, no, your city is actually in the country.
Yeah.
It's just there's a lot of you in dense space. It's not... This whole idea of the wilderness or nature being outside of the city is kind of an absurd notion. Unless, of course, you're in Detroit, then it makes perfect sense.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, at work, my coworker was outside having a cigarette, and a coyote walked up and started, digging in one of the garbage cans. And he was scared to death. He comes running into the store, and he's like, oh my god, there's a coyote out there. He's going to eat me. Oh, what's going to happen? Why are they letting coyotes inside? And I'm like...
Why are they letting coyotes?
I'm like, first of all, it's one coyote, okay? They're scrawny little dog things that are rather easily killed if you know how to do it.
Or scared, too. Just kick them and run away.
Yeah, they're carrion eaters. I mean, that's why he's digging in a garbage can and not trying to chew your leg off. If there's 5 or 6 coyotes, then you're going to have... Then it's a different story. But, I mean, one coyote by himself is not something to be worried about. And it's not something
for somebody's poodle.
Yeah, and it's not something to be, shocked about either. That, oh my god, there's... Can you believe that there's a coyote wandering around the path? I live across from Nose Hill Park, and there's coyotes, packs of them, and deer, right? And, I mean, the park is so small that I can see the houses on the other side.
Right.
Right?
And this is exactly why we kill insects that come into our home. Suddenly, the other day, I hate killing things, even if it's insects, and the other day there was just this tiny little bug crawling across my laptop, and I was like, oh shit, and I smack it, right? That's just territorial instinct right away. It's like, what are you doing in my room? Get out. But I kill
nature allowed in my house unless it's in a pot.
Yeah, and especially spiders. People freak out, too.
That reminds me of, our dear listeners, if you have not already liked I Fucking Love Science on Facebook, go do it.
I sure like that page, too.
Oh my god,
yeah, because hardly qualified while you're there, too.
Yes,
Nudge,
yes.
Nudge.
But I Fucking Love Science likes to keep posting these memes about spiders, right? Because the woman who runs it thinks spiders are incredibly adorable. So she keeps putting up these posts about spiders and how beneficial they are, and it's she's got this whole stream of them where it's the spider's looking at you, and he's like, yeah, so me and my wife just killed a bunch of wasps and stuff. Oh yeah, sure, I would love to have the paper, right? or they're like, it's kind of cold outside, so we're gonna come inside and keep all the mosquitoes away for you. Hey, wait, what's the book for? Right, and it's trying to represent this sort of dichotomy that we are often willing to wreck that which is beneficial to us simply because we don't understand it or we don't like it or whatever. I mean, I don't have a problem with spiders in my house. I have a problem with wasps. I don't know if I've talked about this before, but last year we had a bee infestation. And there was a bee's nest, an orange jacket, or orange-belted bumblebee was the species of bumblebees that they had come in through the foundation in the basement and had a nest inside one of the support beams in the basement.
Wow.
And so they would just come up through a hole in the wall and fly around inside the house. And we'd get up in the morning, there'd be 10, 12 bees flying around the house, and we just gather them up and shoo them out the front door. And because bees are beneficial and they're relatively harmless. Wasps, on the other hand,
so much.
If there's a wasp in my house, that fucker's gonna die.
They're psychopaths.
Yeah, did I tell you I got stung by a wasp when I was moving Curtis out the other day?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I don't know if I told
Last
you.
week,
yeah. I got stung by one. But, I mean, mosquitoes in the house, gonna die. Flies in the house, gonna die. Spiders in the house, just as long as you're not on my face when I'm sleeping, I'm happy.
Right. Yeah, or in your mouth.
Or in my mouth, right? I mean, other than that initial sort of, oh my god, what the fuck is that reaction. But there's no real, rational reason to.
I mean, they literally can't even kill you. I mean, they're not in Australia, so spiders can't kill you here. So you could just let them even walk all over you. But technically, we don't like anything on us
that's
unless
true.
we give it permission to.
Like, a lot of the times you'll hear people who say they'll go out of their way not to step on a beetle or something if it's on their sidewalk. But if that fucker's on the kitchen floor, you're going to chase it with a hammer. Right? So
You know what? Tommy is really good for that. I have to give him credit for it. If I see a bug, I'm most likely to, smush it and throw it away. But if I see it, I'll be like, oh my god, there's a spider. And he'll be like, okay. And then he'll go and, grab a little glass or whatever and set it free outside. And I'm not afraid of the spider. I just don't want it around in my environment. And then I guess I'm guilty of what I just accused everyone else of saying nature's outside. Well, I bring nature in. It clings to my clothing and comes in through the crevices and the windows and everything else, right? So
well, maybe it's just our inherent need to control our surroundings, right?
I draw the line at ants, though.
Yes, I hear
No
that.
ants.
If there's ants in the house, they die.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have
can't
no
kill
problem.
ants.
We have ant hills all over our property,
Oh, yeah.
and that's completely fine. They've invaded the garage. They're slowly disassembling the concrete in there.
Stealing
Whatever.
all your food.
Yeah, but they can't come in the house. Nope. And when they do, they get baited and trapped. And they come in every year anyway. There's we found a little hole in the foundation, and and it's 5 feet down. So it's not like we're gonna dig it up or anything. We just kind of filled it. And anyway, nobody cares about this. Don't let ants in your house. Because then I'll have to come and wag my finger at you.
See, this whole conversation, though, about us just being so territorial makes me think about, just us in general. It's just I don't even know where to draw the line for any of it or feel any of that, because, I'm driving a car, I know, all my gases are going into the trees, I know, the paper I use freaking destroys trees or whatever, I'm not gonna turn vegan or something suddenly. It's because I know that if I have to survive, I have to sacrifice a lot of the nature. So I'm just wondering, where you guys stand on, the whole sacrificing something else just so you could move one aspect, especially considering that also applies to the civilization part as well.
You know what? We're going to answer that in just 2 seconds. Well, maybe about 4 or 5 minutes, because we have this incredibly apropos soundscape that we're going to play.
Okay.
The way we see the world, the reason why we find some things intuitively easy to grasp and others hard, is that our brains are themselves evolved organs. They are evolved to survive in a world where the objects that mattered to our survival were neither very large nor very small, where they either stood still or moved slowly compared with the speed of light, and where the very improbable could safely be treated as impossible. He invites us to think of an experience from your childhood, something you remember clearly, something you can see, feel, maybe even smell, as if you were really there. After all, you really were there at the time, weren't you? How else would you remember it? But here is the bombshell. You weren't there. Not a single atom that is in your body today was there when that event took place. Matter flows from place to place and momentarily comes together to be you. Whatever you are, therefore, you are not the stuff of which you are made. The fact that we live at the bottom of a deep gravity well on the surface of a gas-covered planet going around a nuclear fireball 90 million miles away and think this to be normal is some indication of how skewed our perspective tends to be. You have just breathed in a nitrogen atom that passed through the right lung of the third iguanodon to the left of the tall cycad tree. We can't cope with much higher velocities such as the speed of light. We can only put numbers on them, do mathematics on them. Our brains are not equipped to imagine travelling near the speed of light. Nor are we equipped to imagine what it would be like to be a neutrino passing through a rock in the vast interstices of which the rock consists. We are evolved denizens of middle world, and that limits what we're capable of imagining.
Most educated people, said Sonata, are aware that we are the outcome of nearly 4 billion years of Darwinian selection. But many tend to think that humans are still somehow the culmination of that. Our sun, however, is less than halfway through its lifespan. It will not be humans who watch that sun's demise 6 billion years from now. Any creatures that then do exist will be as different from us as we are from bacteria or amoeba.
I just wanted to say apropos. That's all that was about. Anyway, so our territorial nature.
Well, not just that, but the idea that it's the way of nature, right? That we're all in competition with one another, and that in order to survive, we need to, eat. In order to live, we need to eat, right? That's basically what it is, and everything needs to eat other things. And, that sort of competition, that exertion of if you succeed, you win, you live. If you fail, you fail, and you die, right?
Thanks for that one, Einstein.
No, I was just thinking about it, and I thought, okay, so we're willing to trample over nature.
Yeah.
Why do we draw the line for human beings? I mean, I know, some people don't, they, trample over humans too and conquer them, but it's to what extent does human rights matter if it comes down to your own survival? Say if, Mexico was invading you, okay, and
Me
just,
personally?
yeah, you personally.
Country was showing up for, a 40
knocking on your door with pitchforks,
or something, I mean...
Say you have this, giant flamethrower that could just be exerted from all directions of your house, and you're trapped inside your house, and you're going to be invaded by a Mexican army or something. I don't know why I'm saying Mexican, that just makes sound racist. Any particular human army attacks your house, and you have the ability to just destroy all of them.
They're protesting.
Would the army, can it be like an army of bronies?
Sure.
I was going to say that it's an army of protesters from the Idle No More movement.
It's an army of Ben Affleck, okay, and it's just charging at your house. Would you just let it all die just so you can survive, or would you let it destroy just because it's human?
Well, no. Ultimately, humans, we have a self-same bias, right? We will always identify with those things that are alike to ourselves against those that are not like, right? So we will identify with humans against animals, right? You get a shark who's chewing on a human being, and we as a society anyway, will blame the shark, even if it's the human's own fault, right? We had a couple...
Human jerky.
Yeah, we had a couple of kids who got killed by a boa constrictor because, right, a couple weeks ago, because they were playing in a petting zoo, and they were covered in animal dander, and then they went and slept above the cage. And so the snake did what the snakes do. It smelled rats and went and ate them. Yep. Right? And the snake wasn't being malicious. The snake wasn't, being evil. It hadn't targeted the children. It was just doing what snakes... Yeah, it was doing what snakes do. And
You make it sound like it was a cuddling that went bad.
And we as a society killed the snakes. Right? And then we found in Vancouver a bunch of pythons that somebody was raising in their house, and we overreacted and euthanized them all. Right? So... even if it's justifiable, or usually if it's not, we often justify acts of great injustice by demonstrating the self-same bias. And if we're going to use that as broadly as human versus non-human, we can narrow that to people of our family and as small as people who are not us, right? So,
we're incredibly good at dehumanizing people.
Yeah,
we are. Especially with religion. I've seen atheists just be hate on Christians or something, and it goes vice versa, and there's just so much disparity between all these religions, right? And even that just completely segregates everything.
Burn all the atheists.
Let's just burn everybody.
Burn y'all.
But end of civilization, period.
Yeah. Just me and my ant-free house. The rest of you can go to hell.
Yep.
But I don't know who's going to download the podcast, so those people can stay. But
it's all the ants.
And maybe the guys who keep the internet alive, they can stay, but everybody else has got to go.
So let's talk about actual post-apocalyptia in the last 12 minutes of the podcast.
Wasn't that just an allegory of our day-to-day struggles?
Not necessarily.
Sometimes,
but there's actual valuable lessons we can learn about ourselves by exploring themes in post-apocalyptic settings. Right? But have you ever seen the t-shirt that says the worst part about the zombie apocalypse is pretending that I'm not excited?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. There's something that calls to some of us anyway when it comes to the idea of post-apocalyptia. That you're not in the nanny state anymore. It's you against the world, and that appeals to people. That appeals to some people. I know Will has often talked about how he's willing to sacrifice a little bit of that self-sufficiency in favor of the comfort that society provides. But
we all are.
We all are.
In one way or another. But that's why you have thrill junkies. That's why you have adrenaline junkies who like to jump out of a helicopter and parachute into the middle of a desert and just a man, his canteen, and his knife. Right?
No, that's
Max Factor, isn't it?
No.
Isn't there a Discovery Channel thing on that?
Bear Grylls does that all the time.
Maybe it's a History Channel thing.
I don't know.
Do these channel names actually even represent what's on these
history,
anymore?
you want to talk about television. Remember when MTV was about music, right? And now it's about Teen Wolf. And then A&E used to be about arts and entertainment, and now it's about, Storage Wars. And History Channel used to be about history, and now it's about aliens. And I'm like, it's like a lot of these channels start out really good and true and worth watching, but they fall into that trap of trying to be everything to everybody, and they try to expand they want to appeal to the widest audience as possible. And because of that, they always seem to choose the lowest common denominator, and that's why the quality of these programmings keep going down.
But there's a good side to that, too. AMC was originally for movies, but now it makes good TV shows.
Yeah, but it's
Breaking
still
Bad.
Walking Dead and the killing and hell on wheels. And yeah, I mean,
But they haven't drifted so much from that. I mean, even Discovery Channel has, for the most part, kept their integrity, Shark Week aside.
yeah.
I mean, Daily Planet, which is only available in Canada, is an amazing show. It's a daily news, science and technology show in a news format, right? And I'd rather watch that than whatever, Global or CTV are trying to push on me at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
I agree.
So
and
real journalism.
I was gonna make a point about the post-apocalypse thing. Is it's that people crave something to just break out of the routine. It comes back to like fighting something that's very immediate. People like the idea that like you could just fight now. You could actually go out there and fight flat out for your survival. You could kick ass, do whatever. Rules don't apply anymore, and you could just go berserk. It's like that's the whole notion behind like people that do get excited about zombie apocalypse. I mean, to an extent, even I think about that.
I wouldn't really agree with that. I don't think it's oh my god, there's no rules and I can do whatever I want. It's these stakes are real, and if I fuck up, I die. And that means that if I don't fuck up, then I'm actually doing something that matters. Whereas we live in the world right now, if you fuck up, whatever, right? There's no real consequences to failure.
What?
It's not like it's not like
permanent consequences.
Yeah, it's not like if not on the same scale anyway.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, you could still like I don't know,
but
shoot yourself in the head
or do your own electrical work.
Yeah,
but I mean that's why I like games like Fallout or games like I guess Fallout's probably the prime example. Fallen Earth was a pretty good game. It's kind of the same idea, but it was an MMO, so it was, the same kind of idea that it's post-apocalyptic, and you got that. Unless you guys want to talk about specific post-apocalyptic settings, but
no, I mean it's they all have.
Have any of you guys
genre I get into, right? So.
Have any of you ever read a book series called Deathlands? No, it's been around since like the late 80s, and it's really, really bad writing, and it's made by the same company that does like Harlequin romances, so it's that quality of writing. Or lack thereof, as the case may be. But, I mean, I don't know if he's making the books anymore, but the series, last I saw, had like 90 books in it. And like a new one comes out like every 3 months or something. I've got like 2 shelves on my bookshelves covered. And it's just really cheesy, bad writing. And like every time some kind of big sort of cultural phenomenon hits, there's a Deathlands novel that takes, like, I mean, when Stargate started getting really big, suddenly there was a couple of episodes or a couple of books of Deathlands where they were dealing with, the sun god. Right, like some Egyptian who was trying to bring back the sort of Egyptian pantheon, and I mean,
right.
But I mean, the stories themselves, there's something primal about it, and because that's so alien to us in our modern, comfy world that we don't have that, primal, kill or be killed, you're 3 days away from being dead, type, situations.
Yeah, you don't have something that matters. That really matters.
It's that kind of stuff. It's out of the norm for us, and that's why it appeals to people, I think, right?
People should just go to Syria right now, then. Just ship yourself out there and fight for your life.
So, maybe I'm just talking in circles.
You're probably making sense. Like I said, I can't contribute much to it because I live in constant fear for my life. Tommy's got issues. He's got some judgments and some things he likes and some things he doesn't like, and
constant fear. It sounds like you're making. It sounds
too
like
much nose hair, and he comes at you with scissors, and he hates everybody, trying to kill them all.
No, he doesn't.
Maybe I live in a post-apocalyptic household.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, you have a house,
especially
right?
with ants.
So I do.
Right, there's still that social structure. Somebody built the house for you. It's not like you had to go peel tin or sheet steel or whatever off the side of a broken.
We call it a wood frame house, but okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But there's no tin sheeting here. They stopped making houses like that back in the 30s.
But when you don't have the residential industrial complex producing all these prefabricated materials for you, we'll go back to it. We'll go back to thatched huts and wattle and daub.
Nah, we'll probably just, usurp existing structures.
Well, that's true, yeah. We'll live in a burnt-out car.
Yeah, I mean, as ignorant as we are of many processes, there's still enough know-how to fell a tree and turn them into 2x4s. That's not a skill that I think we're going to lose for an incredibly long time.
Yeah.
I mean, most people can figure out the basics of electricity generation, and we have enough, motors lying around, even in a post-apocalyptic, I can't pronounce that properly, a society that, we can generate our own electricity, even if it's just through wind power or human power, water. Like, it's not gonna, power my computer so I can play PlanetSide or Hawken. But we're gonna be able to charge our iPhones.
Yeah, except there's no cell towers anymore.
That's okay, I can still play Angry Birds. No Candy Crush, though, thank God.
See, what the fuck is this Candy Crush thing? I don't know. Maybe I'm just way behind on
it's a fad that's over. There's a new game now that everyone's raving about, and I don't really care because I hate it when people try to Facebook game me.
See, I don't play any games on Facebook, so I have no idea what they are.
Me neither.
Right, and I keep getting spammed in my feed about people who are like, oh, I just won 1,000 points on Candy Crush, oh my god!
Yeah, good for you.
Like, whatever.
My mother-in-law keeps, texting me and saying, can you send me lives in Candy Crush? And I'm like, no, I told you I don't play this game.
That's what's gonna kill us.
Candy Crush?
Candy Crush. Or the needs for Candy Crush. Or games like that. Could you just imagine the post-apocalyptic thing for the first 2 days? It's like, oh my god, I gotta check my Candy Crush account. Why?
You know what'll send people into a rage is when their DLC or their DRM games won't fire up. There's enough power. Oh my god, my Xbox One won't authenticate to the network. I can't play my games. I'm grabbing my shotgun. Let's go kill some real people. Yep.
Well, see,
Somehow.
that's what I like about Steam, is it'll still let you play your games offline. So, I feel like this conversation is
brought
lulling.
to you by... Yeah.
Okay, I have a question, though.
I have an answer. I don't know if it's relevant, though.
Hey, that's,
Okay, tell me your answer first, then the question second.
That's almost my line. You have a question, I have an answer. Let's see if they match. Stop stealing.
It's
I was-
derivative.
I was thinking about the civilization part of it, and do you think there's any way to actually stop the end?
The end of...
Just civilization, like, do you think there could be potentially any way to actually sustain something for a longer duration of time? And
Well,
almost,
I would think that human nature would have to change.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
And human nature thrives on adversity, right? And we stagnate on complacency. And that's I think, is the bottom line, right? I mean,
We'd also
Like-
have to lose any need for social cohesion,
yeah,
which we'll establish that we're just pink bags of flesh, right? Or maybe not pink, I'm not trying to be racist, but
ugly bags of dirty water.
yeah, so in that sense, you're always going to need a society, and some society is always going to strive to some form of civilization. So what it looks like, whether or not this is the epitome of civilization right
Did
now,
you just say
or...
epitome?
What did I say?
I think you mean epitome.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Epitome? What the fuck is an epitome?
An epitome is a really bad epitome.
It's one of those words that you've never heard spoken, but you see it written all the time, and that's how you learn how to pronounce it.
No, I know how to pronounce it. I was just... My mind was like going 3 sentences ahead. I'm trying to form the whole thing here. Speaking live on air isn't easy. You guys know this. People think, oh, you sound so smart. And I'm like, you really? Because generally by the time we finish recording, I feel like a complete blathering idiot.
I did too.
Yeah, blah, 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 blah.
Like, I have no idea if any of this makes sense. That's why I can't wait until, Ducky's done post and whatnot so I can listen to it and go, oh my god, I'm not a complete fool.
Yeah,
It makes sense to
Just
me.
a minor fool.
it's a minor fool.
We all are. We're all minor fools.
So anyway,
So
yeah.
anyway, my point about the epitome of society that we are currently in may not be. That is bad grammar. But my point still stands.
Yeah.
I was just curious, but
Who knows what the future will hold, right?
yep.
You were curious about
Oh no, I already knew. Like,
curiosity's been satisfied?
no, not remotely, never. Is it ever? No, I was just thinking about it, and I personally don't think there's any way we could potentially sustain ourselves for long periods of time, like Ducky said, without changing human nature first.
And I mean,
Because that's
what has made us so successful is that human nature, right? So, I mean, even if we do have even if our nature does change such that an existing civilization can be sustainable indefinitely, the second that civilization comes in contact with a threat that it cannot handle or cannot overpower, then we will have removed from ourselves our ability to recover from that encounter.
yeah.
Right? I mean,
Because I feel like it might work kind of if you like outsource the threat, but then like try to bring it together for survival. But then the more I think about it, I realize no, we're still gonna be so divided about like every little thing. It's like it's just being in relationships with everybody else in any post-apocalyptic or any situations where you're clustered in a group. There's still stuff division over everything because you just can't get along about every little thing. So even a minor thing expands into something larger, like a bigger problem, and that just creates conflict. Like say we were all united, we're in a room and we know we have to fight for survival, and you have that common goal to like get out there, do something. What if like one of us is a Christian and believes that this is God's doing or something like that, and then the other
He's the
person's
first one to die.
yeah, you
just throw him out. He's
you
a
go hug the
sacrifice.
That
zombies
just
then.
makes sense.
If you just
Nothing
think they're
against
safe,
Christians.
you go hug them.
No,
We found our bait.
If somebody's in the room and is like, I'm not picking up a weapon, this is ordained, God wants this to happen, I'm like, yeah, you're gonna pick up a weapon, alright. But anyway, sorry. I digress. So, here's the trick of the whole thing, right? Normalcy is an illusion. What we see as the norm of society and of our values and our culture is really just a sense of what we think we see around us. And it's an average, and we all know that the average doesn't exist. We all have outliers, and in any type of value system or social structure, there's kind of a range of what's considered norm, and then you have your outliers and whatnot, and people as a group drift to the edges and forces the average to change. So, but we consider it a norm. When we talk about Western society or American culture, we talk about it like these are things that are somehow ingrained in stone, and when they are noticeably modified, people get all pissy about it for whatever reason. But it's not true. It's never been like that. It's all an illusion. Wisdom by Will. Brought to you by Highly Qualified.
Yes,
See what happens when I have a nap.
everything is by consensus.
But not necessarily explicit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one of the fundamental problems with the whole concept of human rights, too, right? I mean, I was listening back through some of our archives, and I remember one of the first things that Bob talked about was how he doesn't believe that human rights actually exist. Right? Because they're based solely on consensus, and I think it's a real dangerous place where we start looking at things as being consensus is the arbiter of the value of something. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
right?
Well, and it doesn't necessarily mean we're right. I mean, we've been wrong in massive amounts of numbers before.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, look at religion, right? 90% of the population in this planet believes in a higher power of one form or another, right?
Is that true, or is that a made-up statistic?
No.
We'll never know.
One form or the other.
One
That
form or
makes
the other.
sense.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't mean you have to, like, situate to a particular religion. You can still be agnostic.
It's got a truthiness to it.
Yeah.
That's included.
We don't deal with facts on this podcast. Truthiness is good enough for us.
Let's just throw a number in there so it feels very accurate.
Well, I
That's
think
a
Easier to
race
research.
problem.
Well, I mean, like in the United States, they're just looking at what? Only 70% of the population now identifies as religious in one aspect or another, right? So, I mean, there's other nations where that number is far, far higher, right?
Well, Canada, 30% is non-religious. We're the second largest identifiable religious group is the non-religious.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
But I mean, like, I'm pretty sure if you go to Iran, there's not going to be very many atheists. In
Not
Iran.
publicly.
Not publicly, yeah, but that's why I said identified as,
Right.
right? Or Gaza. Right?
Well, I think that Christianity and Judaism and Islam are really, really different. Christianity is very much an opt-in religion, in that you're identified as maybe a culture group or a faith group, not as a race.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're Jewish or a lot of times Islamic, you identify yourself as being of an Islamic race or a Jewish race.
Well,
you
see,
don't
the
see
thing
that
is-
so much in modern Christianity.
Well, that's
I
true.
mean, there are
but
outliers, but
the Jewish faith and the Jewish race are two different things, though. Just like the Islamic faith and the Muslim race or whatever is. See, because I mean, even Muslim, like the thing is it's not Muslims that's a race; it's Arabs are a race, right?
oh no, I know that.
Right, and a lot of the times Arabs and Muslims get confused with one another, but they don't realize that we have Indians who are Muslim, right, and we have Africans who are Muslim.
Right, but
We have Europeans who are Muslim, right? So
And North Americans are
your
Muslim.
identity in terms of that is passed down through your lineage, right? So your Muslimness, if you will, is passed down through your father. Your Jewishness is passed down from your mother. And Christianity, you just kind of opt into it.
well,
it's
that's
like-
not necessarily true. I mean, well, I
I
guess
guess you can't be indoctrinated into
Okay,
it.
all right, no,
but
I see.
there's no such thing as a false Christian as long as, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like if
okay,
you
I
say
can see the
magic
distinction you're
words
trying
and-
to draw. That from a sort of a genealogical representation, if you're talking about what makes a person Jewish. If your dad was a Muslim, you're a Muslim. If your mother is a Jew, you're a Jew.
Right.
But I don't think it's I'm fairly certain it's that cut and dried for Jews. But I don't know if it's that cut and dried for Muslims.
Well, it definitely distorts the argument, though, right? Because when we're talking about religious extremism, or we're talking about religious cultures, especially in the monotheistic cultures, you really have to include this concept of race, which is an absurd concept to begin with. But you have to include that in the dialogue, whereas in Christianity, you don't. Unless, of course, you're part of the KKK. But
I could actually get input into that because I grew up in the Middle East in like grade 3 and 4. I was in the UAE, it wasn't so drastic, but essentially, like, I think to an extent it comes down to choice also. It's because I've seen some Muslim fathers and Muslim mothers just allow their kids to choose if they want to be Muslim or not, which I thought was really cool, but not everyone does that, obviously. So it ultimately just depends on the parenting. I mean, even as a Christian child, you know, like, babies get baptized. It's not like they're given that choice. They're just like, oh, look, you're a baby, you're getting baptized, you're under the name of Christ now.
well, maybe my perception on that is errant, but it just seems that to me that it's less of an issue. Race plays less of an issue in Christianity than it does in the other two monotheists.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming
Or
from. But,
Abrahamics.
I mean, it's one of the things. Like Richard Dawkins likes to say this all the time. He says, "If you think Islam is a race, that makes you the racist, not me."
Right.
Right, and that's really like a good point. Like, Islam is not a race, right? I mean, but
There's a
there is,
politician Australian who thinks Islam's a country.
but there is that sort of blurring of the line between ideology and genealogy, right?
Well, it's because it is largely inherited through your parents.
Well, religion in general is, right?
But that's what I mean. But I can stop being Christian. I mean, I did stop being Christian.
You can stop being Muslim too if you were to, because I've seen a lot of people that stop being whatever religion they were. I mean, I'm Indian and I've been raised in a Hindu household and they didn't enforce a law onto me. Like, I didn't even have to go attend any of it and it was just up to me, and I'm like an atheist now.
But if you're Jewish, you don't stop being Jewish. I mean, you can stop being a practicing Jew. But your racial identification is still Jewish.
that depends. I mean, like,
Yeah.
who's gonna know, right? I mean, it doesn't say you're Jewish on your passport. It doesn't say you're Jewish on your driver's license. It's just the only person that can identify you as a Jewish is if you identify yourself as a Jew. I mean, if I stop being Jewish,
Is being Jewish still really, like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, in these modern days, it's I'd like to draw the delineation between being a Jew and being an Israeli, right? Like, the Israeli is the nationality and being a Jew is the religion, right?
But being a Jew is also the race.
Yeah,
Because
I guess there's an argument that can be made for that.
if you were born in Canada and, you know, of a Jewish mother,
yeah, but I mean, I think that's sort of that.
you're not Israeli.
Yeah, but that sort of racial, sort of, like that
No,
racial
I know,
identifier, I think, is also is an illusion. I mean, you're not
I agree.
genealogically, right?
yeah, exactly.
I mean, I understand that.
I mean,
maybe
'cause
this is
if-
why this argument is falling apart, because we agree on the absurdity of race.
Right.
It's
I mean,
like
we have
saying that-
Arab Jews, and we have Caucasian Jews, and we have African Jews, and we have Indian Jews, right? I mean, it seems like, but I mean, that's of course because that's That's if you are willing to put stock in the concept of race in the first place, I guess. Right. So,
I don't think the idea for race even makes sense to me. You know, like I just, for instance, Asians,
well, it's a tool
right?
to dehumanize, right? That's
Yeah,
all
I mean,
it is.
I mean,
look at the attachment of Asians. You know, I mean, look at all the countries that are in Asia. I mean, Russia is part of Asia to an extent. You know, so you don't go around calling Russians Asians. You identify them by their country.
yeah.
And
Generally,
to me,
when people say Asian, they're referring specifically to the Orient, to
exactly.
Unless
Mongolia,
they're
China.
Indian.
Well,
Indians identify themselves as Asians.
well, Southwest Asians, they'll often use that. But yeah, I mean, Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis from the Indian subcontinent there.
Yeah.
Right. Everything east of like Iran.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you know, Christopher Hitchens was famous for refusing to identify himself, even on government paperwork, as any particular race or ethnicity. And
Yeah.
there's a story of him trying to, I think it was get a visa or a passport or something, and he wouldn't indicate that he was Caucasian. And when he was challenged on it by the government official, he said, you know, I have nothing to do with the Caucos. I've never been to the province. None of my family has. I'm not Iranian. I'm more Celtic in origin than anything else, and that's not on your form. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's why. See, when we talk about race, so like I said in the last couple episodes, we're not really talking about race. We're talking about cultures and the cultures from which we descend. Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
that gets
now we're
iffy.
living in an age where people of all skin colors and all hair colors and all eye colors and all physical characteristics can hail from nearly any culture in existence. We have, people who would not stand out in northern Scotland. You know, pale skin, freckles, orange hair. You know, but they're Indian. They're culturally Indian. They're religiously Hindu. Or Sikh. Right? I mean, the first time that I ever saw a Sikh, this Sikh blew my mind when I saw that. Like, he had pale hair, or pale skin, freckles, big orange bushy beard, but he was wearing a turban and spoke with an Indian accent. And it blew my mind because I had always associated Indians with brown skin.
And you always associated freckles and orange hair with gingers.
Yeah, but I mean, that's stereotypically a sort of northern British, Scottish, like Irish sort of, physical stature. And because cultures evolve in groups of people who live together for generations, oftentimes those groups of people will share physical characteristics, right? And so that you used to be able to make judgments about a person's culture based on their physical characteristics. And that's not true anymore, right? Because we have black people who are English, right? And we have, Indian people who are from Mexico. And we have, Australians who are, of Asian descent. Because physical characteristic of race no longer corresponds with culture. And that's why it's really hard to sort of make those judgments anymore, right? We can't use a person's physical characteristics as an indicator of their culture.
Even nationalities don't even matter, because just because they have a particular nationality on their passport doesn't mean they've lived their entire lives.
That's
it
true.
doesn't mean that they're defined by the country.
Right.
I mean,
That brings us.
mine says Canadian, and I've been in Canada since I was 11, right? I mean, I still had a life ahead of that where I was experiencing living in different parts of the world.
Well,
so
I mean,
it's...
That's why we have a problem in this country of Canadians of convenience.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we have Lebanese people who are Lebanese culturally and Lebanese genealogically and Lebanese practically. They live in Lebanon. But then the second that Hezbollah started acting up, suddenly all the Canadian passports came out and Canada had to come rescue them. Right? And there was a big uproar about that because they haven't lived in Canada for, 25 years, but they're still a Canadian citizen. And, they immigrated as a refugee. They, got their Canadian citizenship because they got their refugee status or whatever. And then when all the nonsense in Beirut calmed down back in the 80s and early 90s, they went back to Lebanon and, So, I mean, even nationality.
Let's leave that there, just because time.
Okay.
And this is 33. So in episode 36, we're going to be talking about like multiculturalism and cultural mashups and whatnot. So that'll blend in. So listen to this episode, then listen to 35, and then go back to 34. No, I'm kidding. 34, we're gonna skewer the English language, but 35, we're gonna get back into this culture thing that's already on the schedule. So let's just do that. All right, because we're out of time. Anyway.
That's a good thing my headset's going to die now anyway. I got the beeping of the low battery in the background, so.
There we go.
Sounds good.
Yay!
So thanks for coming out, Tesh. It was nice to meet you. We've now been friends for 2 hours.
Yay!
So, long live that association, such as it is. I guess now I have to create a category for you on the website. That's going to be cool.
Call me the cynical writer. I don't know.
We'll just call you Tesh. Yeah.
Okay, that works. That's way more, less letters.
Yeah. Oh, Tommy's the only one that's got a title, the working man, right? So,
And he reminds us every 2 minutes.
That he's a working man?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And just for those of you who think that, this is a radio shtick thing, no, he actually does that in real life, too. It's getting really irritating. I'm like, dude, just keep it to the podcast. I live with you. You don't need to convince anyone. But anyway, I would like to introduce you all to the MarlBros, a Calgary rock band. Yes, rock, I know. We've been doing a lot of hip-hop and other weird kind of interesting, funky stuff lately, but we'll scale it back and go to a bit of a more smoother sound, if you will. Who'd ever thought that rock would be described as a smoother sound? Jeez. Anyway, this is the MarlBros and Standing on a Corner.
Standing on the corner with the unsung, you just roll with the life you lead. Because we all wanna get away and start on something new. Yeah, but we only find the time when the reasons we had are through. The sun shines for all, even those born under the moon. If you wanna live your life, then you better start living it soon. Because you're sucking on that smoke like you got nothing better to do. And that smoke ain't going nowhere, and chances are neither are you. So if you need, take it slow, and chances are you'll be alright. Since I last breathed your name, and then I heard that you were coming my way. Everybody told me how much you had changed. I tell you, when I see you, you still just look the same. It's so surreal with you standing right here. This moment is something I long for and fear. I've got all these thoughts rushing through my mind. Do you think what could have been? 'Cause I do all the time. Spare me the preaching, you know I'm wrong for staying and for waiting for so long. So if you need, take it slow, and chances are you'll be alright. Seems done now. You know the sun is gonna shine after the night.
Thank you for listening to Hardly Qualified. Remember to check the website at hardlyqualified.ca for news, updates, references, and to learn how to support the podcast. Please review and rate us in iTunes after each episode to help get the word out. If you're a Facebook user, like us and share with your friends and enemies at facebook.com/hardlyqualified, where you can also join in on the conversation. A special thanks to the artists who have donated music to the podcast. We greatly appreciate your work. As always, artists may be found in each episode's reference section. Again, thanks for listening, and remember, knowledge starts with questions. Don't fear them. We'll see you next week.